Gerek yok bence ona.
İsmail,
Şu an açık mı her şeyimiz?
Açık abi.
Sesin hakim ol. Hakim ol İsmail.
Ayıpsın abi.
Şu kravatını da bir çek yukarı bak.
yapıyorlardı. En sonunda İstanbul'da yine bir özel okulu, diğer büyük oğlumu da mevcut okulundan o okula transfer etmek şartıyla kabul aldık. 4. sınıfta bir dönem sadece Buğra okula gidebildi. Bir dönemin sonunda şikayetle yine bizi defize ettiler ve okul dışına attılar. Buğra'nın eğitim hayatı orada aslında bitmişti. Yani artık yapabileceğimiz bir yerde kalmamıştı. Buğra'nın hayatına renk katmak amacıyla ilköğretim okulunun müzik öğretmeninden ders aldırmak istedik evdeki org ile. Fakat o bize yeni bir kapı açtı tabii. Çukurova Üniversitesi Konservatuvarı'nın önünden tesadüfen geçerken orada bir boşlukta konservatuvardaki hocalar da Buğra'nın yetenekli olduğunu söylesin de moralimiz düzelsin amacıyla kapısını çaldık biz aslında. Orada bir lisans öğrencisi Buğra'nın kulağını ölçtü ve müthiş bir kulak var bu çocukta. Mutlaka hocalar görsün gibi bir öneride bulundu bize. Otizmli birisinin sınava dahil olup olmayacağı konusunda bizim de kuşkularımız vardı. Bir engel yok denildiğince sınava sokulduğunda 20'den fazla komisyonda hoca vardı ve Buğra'nın kulağına hayran kalmışlardı. Fakat Buğra'yı okula kabul edip etmeme konusunda komisyon ikiye ayrılmıştı. Yarısı çok yetenekli, bu çocuğu kaçırmayalım. Diğer yarısı da biz sıradan öğrencilere eğitim vermekte güçlük yaşıyoruz. Otizmli birisine nasıl eğitim verebiliriz? Ve en sonunda tabii Buğra'yı kabul etmeme noktasına gelindi. Ben geçmişteki Buğra'nın başarılarına bakarak Buğra birebirle her şeyi öğrenebileceğine bir inancım vardı benim. Ve dolayısıyla Buğra'nın müzik yeteneğinin ömrünün sonuna kadar devam edebilmesini sağlamak adına Buğra'nın bir müfredat kapsamında formal eğitim denilen müzik eğitimi alması gerektiğine inandım. Bunun için de konservatuvar kapılarını çalmaya başladım tekrardan. Üniversite sınavı noktasına geldiğimiz zaman yine süreç tıkandı bizim için. Konservatuvarlara girebilmek için baraj puanı denilen bir şey var ve bu baraj puanını aşmanız durumunda yetenek sınavlarına girebiliyorsunuz. Buğra'nın otizmlere uygun bir sınav yapısı olmadığından, üniversite sınavından barajı aşıp aşamayacağı konusunda benim çok ciddi kuşkularım var. Buğra'nın sınavda ne yapacağı konusunda hiçbir fikrim olmadığı için Güzel Sanatlar Lisesi'ni bitirdiğimiz anda bizim yolumuzun bittiğini veya biteceğini düşünerekten çok üzülüyordum ben. Bununla ilgili ben YÖK'e bir yazı yazdım o zaman. Dedim ki benim oğlum konservatuvarın ilkokul bölümlerine alınmadı. Alınmış olsaydı oradan liseye devam edecekti. Konservatuvar lisesini bitirenler lisansa üniversite sınavına girmeden direkt devam ediyorlar. Ama benim oğlum Güzel Sanatlar Lisesi'nden mezun olduğu için şimdi üniversite sınavına girmesi gerekiyor. Ve üniversite sınavının formatı otizmlerin yapısına uygun bir sınav sistemi değil ve bu baraj puanını alamama ihtimali çok yüksek. Ve YÖK hemen bir çalışma başlattı. Üstün yeteneklilerle ilgili bir çalışma başlatıyoruz. Üstün yetenekliler üniversite sınavına girmeden konservatuvarlara kabul edilebilecek şeklinde bir bana geri bildirim geldi. Bu kanun buradan bir yıl sonra geçti. Şu anda hala hazırda var. Üstün yetenekliler bir komisyonla üstün yetenekli olduğunu tespit ediyorsanız bunun üniversite sınavına da bir puan, üniversite sınavına girmesine veya bir puan almasına gerek olmadan konservatuvarlara dahil olabiliyorlar. Buğra mevcut düzeni bozmadan halihazırda Buğra nasıl kazanımlarla devam ediyor burada diyerek İskenderun Konservatuvarı'na Buğra girdi ve orada birincilikle kazandı. Çeşitli yerlerde Buğra konserler veriyor bu arada. Buğra çok popüler oldu, bir sürü gazete haberleri. Yüksek lisans eğitimine devam edebilir mi edemez mi gibi bir arzum var. Afyonkarahisar Üniversitesi Konservatuvarı'nın müdürüyle, o Sayın Profesör Uğur Türkmen'le karşılaştık. Sınava girsin. Sınavda işte not ortalaması isteniyor ki Buğra dereceyle mezun oldu. Çok yüksek bir not ortalaması var. Bir de performans isteniyor. Bunun ikisinin ortalamasını öğrenci alıyoruz biz. Yani otizmlilerde giremez diye bir madde yok. Dolayısıyla Buğra'ya bu şekilde yüksek lisans yolu açıldı. Buğra arkasından Erasmus kapsamında İtalya, Floransa, Cherubini Konservatuvarı'nda stajyer olarak kabul edildi. Ve orada yüksek lisansın sonunda tamam artık buraya kadar deniliyordu. Çünkü Buğra'nın sanatta yeterlilik eğitimine devam edebilmesi için yabancı dilden 55 puan gibi bir skora sahip olması gerekiyordu YÖK dilden. Buğra ana dilini dahi yeterince derecede kullanamıyor. Kendi dilini dahi işte sınırlı kullanırken herhangi bir dilden 55 puanlık seviyeye gerisini getirebilmesi için bize eminim bir değil iki tane ömür gerekirdi. Yine belki o yola da düşerdik ama çok uzun da bir süreç gerekirdi. YÖK'e bir dilekçe yazdım tekrar. Durumu anlatan, Buğra'nın özgeçmişini anlatan, başarılarını anlatan, Buranın işte yurt dışından aldığı sertifikaları, yurt içindeki eğitimleri anlatan. YÖK bunu çok ciddiye aldı. YÖK'teki engelli komisyonu daha dilekçemi okur okumaz komisyon başkanı Zeliha Hanım profesör telefonda beni aradı ertesi günü. Dedi ki dilekçenizi okudum. Bunu biz değerlendireceğiz Kemal Bey. Bu benim için de çok büyük bir umut ışığı doğurdu zaten o anda. Gerçekten de toplantı sonucunda bütün komisyon üyelerin olaya inceledikten sonra, yapabilirliğini gördükten sonra bu oranın bir kanun çıkardılar. Dil öğreniminde özel güçlüğü olan engel grupları, işte otizm, zihinsel engel, işitme engeller. Bu grup için özel güçlük olduğu için dil öğrenmede, doktora eğitiminde, sanat yeterlilik eğitiminde dil şartı ön şart olarak olmaktan kanunen kaldırıldı. Bu sayede Buğra doktora eğitimine başladı. Türkiye'deki doktora eğitimi alan, konservatuvar doktora eğitimi alan otizmli olması benim için de çok gurur verici. Buğra bu kadar çabanın sonunda bile şu son bir yılda burada kendi üzerine mesleki manada çok şey koydu üzerine. Geçtiğimiz dönem içerisinde birkaç gün önce Cumhurbaşkanı Senfoni Orkestrası şefiyle beraber bir konser verdi, konçerto çaldı. Bu da çok büyük gurur verici bir şey ve ben gelecekte Buğra'nın sanat seviyesinin gerçekten sanatçı seviyesine kadar taşınacağına yürekten inanıyorum. Bunu yapabilir benim oğlum. Ve şu anda da bu yolda biz ilerliyoruz.
Gerek yok mikrofona. Sizlerden ricamız, şimdi Bach Konçerto'nun 2. 3. bölümünü dinleyeceksiniz. Ama salonda mutlak bir sessizliğe ihtiyacımız var. Özellikle arka tarafta burayı dinleyebilmek için çok özel bir şans hepiniz için, bizler için de. Dolayısıyla rica ediyoruz sizden mutlak bir sessizlik salonda. Şimdi 2. bölümüne devam edeceğiz, olur mu? daha selamlıyorum.
If you can kindly please take your seats, we'll start. So, I would like to invite Dr. Batir Berdiklichev, a WHO Country Office Turkey representative, to the floor.
Dear participants, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, günaydın. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you on behalf of the WHO Country Office in Turkey to the second meeting of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition and the annual meeting of the Project on Social Inclusion of Persons with Mental Disabilities. We've just witnessed and listened to a beautiful performance of Mr. Bugra Çankır, the Ankara Music and Fine Arts University Orchestra, and Maestro Cemican Deliorman, for which I would like to thank them on behalf of all of us. Welcome to the meeting, but also welcome to Ankara, and I hope that you were not disturbed too much this morning when we all felt some tremblings. Actually, according to the information provided by the Turkish authorities, there was an earthquake of 5.9 magnitude, happened 220 kilometers from Istanbul, between Istanbul and Ankara. There is no information about casualties. Unfortunately, several people were injured, and we wish them soonest recovery. But in general, Ankara is one of the safest places on the seismic map of the Turkey, and we follow recommendation and advice of the Turkish authorities and also UN Division on Security and Safety. So this is just to give you reassurance so that we can continue. And with that, I would like to invite to the podium for the opening speech and remarks representatives of the host country, Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Tolga Tolunay, for his welcoming speech. Dr. Tolga Tolunay, the floor is yours.
Ekselansları, Sayın Bölge Direktörü, değerli katılımcılar. Öncelikle Pan-Avrupa Ruh Sağlığı Koalisyonu ikinci toplantısı ve ülkemize yürütülen Sosyal Engelli Bireyler için Sosyal İçerme Projesi'nin kapanış toplantısına hoş geldiniz diyorum. Az önce Sayın Natasha ile beraber otururken konuştuk. Gerçekten müzik dinletisiyle başlamak güne çok güzel oldu. Böyle başlangıçta toplantımıza start vermiş olduk. Hepinizi saygıyla selamlıyorum. Siz değerli misafirlerimizi güzel ülkemizde ağırlamaktan duyduğum memnuniyeti dile getirerek sözlerime başlamak istiyorum. Geçen yıl Belçika'da lansmanını yaptığımız ve benim de bizzat katılım sağladığım koalisyonun ikinci toplantısının ülkemde yapılması bana ayrı bir mutluluk vermektedir. Kıymetli katılımcılar, bilindiği üzere klasik tanımlamasıyla sağlık sadece hastalık durumunun olmayışı değil, kişinin bedenen, ruhen ve sosyal yönden tam bir iyilik halidir. Ruh sağlığı ise bireysel ve toplum sağlığımızın ayrılmaz bir parçasıdır. Bu sebeple sağlık hizmetlerine entegre ve herkesin erişimine açık ruh sağlığı hizmeti sunumunda bizlere önemli görevler düşmekte. Herkesin topluma en iyi şekilde entegre olması ve günlük hayatta olumsuzluklarla karşılaşmadan yaşamını sürdürmesi ancak bu sayede mümkün olabilmektedir. Ruh sağlığı bozuklukları, sosyal alanda dışlanma ve işsizlik gibi birçok sorunu da beraberinde getirmekte. Diğer yandan bulaşıcı olmayan hastalıklara yakalanma, mortalite ve morbidite risklerini de arttıran bir faktör olarak öne çıkmakta. Bu nedenlerle ruh sağlığı 2018 yılında Birleşmiş Milletler'de 3. bulaşıcı olmayan hastalıkların kontrolü ve önlenmesi toplantısında bulaşıcı olmayan hastalıklar risk faktörleri arasında dahil edilmiştir. Ruh sağlığını bütüncül bir şekilde ele alabilmek için hiçbir koşulda hiç kimseyi geride bırakmamak için pandemi ve çatışmalara bağlı gelişmeleri göz ardı etmemeliyiz. Bu sebeple ruh sağlığını acil durumlara hazırlık ve yanıtının bir parçası yapan politikalar geliştirerek en zor zamanlarda bu en temel sağlık hakkına erişimi mutlaka devam ettirmeliyiz. Değerli misafirler, ülkemizin son yıllarda özellikle ruh sağlığı ve sosyal hizmetlerin dönüşüm bağlamında büyük bir ilerleme kaydetmiş durumdadır. Sağlığın ayrılmaz bir parçası olarak kabul ettiğimiz ruh sağlığı hizmetleri sunumunu bakanlığımızın temel görevlerinden biri olarak görmekteyiz ve bunu sürdürmeye de çok kararlıyız. Tüm hizmet alanlarında olduğu gibi ruh sağlığı konusunda da bireyi merkeze alan gelişim, kalite ve sürdürülebilirlik odaklı bir yaklaşım ile hizmet sunmaktayız. Bugün bir araya gelmemize vesile olan ve koalisyonun hedeflerinin pratiğe dökülmüş hali olan bu proje ile toplum temelli ruh sağlığı hizmetlerinin güçlendirilmesinde önemli katkılar sağladık. Bu projeyle elde ettiğimiz başarılı sonuçların ruh sağlığı alanında birçok ülkeyi iyi bir uygulama örneği oluşturana da inanmaktayız. Kıymetli katılımcılar, 2021 yılında güncellenen Ulusal Ruh Sağlığı Eylem Planı'nda birinci basamak sağlık hizmetleri, toplum temelli hizmetler, sosyal bakım hizmetleri ve ikinci ve üçüncü basamak ruh sağlığı hizmetleriyle koordinasyonun sağlanmasına yönelik faaliyetlere öncelik verildi. Ruh sağlığı hizmetlerinde bütünleşik toplum temelli ruh sağlığı hizmet modelini hayata geçirmek, bireylerin ruh sağlığını takip etmek, korumak ve iyileştirmek ise nihai amaç olarak belirlendi. Bu doğrultudaki çalışmalarımızda koruyucu ve birinci basamak ruh sağlığı hizmetlerinin güçlendirilmesi için Dünya Sağlık Örgütü tarafından oluşturulan müdahale programlarını kullanmaktayız. Ayrıca toplum ruh sağlığı merkezlerini işbaşı eğitim programlarını da desteklemekteyiz. Çalışanlarımızın eğitimlerini de önceliklendirmiş durumdayız. Bu bağlamda Ruhsal Engelli Bireyler için Sosyal İçerme Projesi ile 91 Toplum Ruh Sağlığı Merkezi'nde 596 personele toplum temelli ruh sağlığı hizmeti konusunda eğitimlerini tamamlamış bulunmaktayız. Ruhsal engelli bireylere yönelik yürütülen kurumsal bakım hizmetlerinin toplum temelli hizmetlere dönüşmesi için de psikiyatri yataklarının ülke geneline yayılması ve yeni açılacak yatakların da genel hastaneler içerisinde olması temel hedeflerimiz arasında yer almaktadır. Eş zamanlı olarak toplum temelli ruh sağlığı modelini güçlendirip ağır psikiyatrik hastalıkların tedavi ve rehabilitasyonunun toplum içinde sağlanması da önceliklerimiz arasında yer almaktadır. Bu hedefe doğru ilerlerken zora dayalı tecrit, tespit gibi uygulamalara karşı sıfır tolerans politikamız kapsamında proje aktivitesi olarak eğitimler düzenledik. Ruh sağlığı hastanelerimizin insan hakları ve iyileşme yaklaşımı temelinde hizmet vermesi için yoğun bir şekilde çalıştık ve çalışmaya da devam ediyoruz. Proje ortaklarımız olan Avrupa Birliği ve Dünya Sağlık Örgütü ile işbirliği içerisinde birçok eğitim programında hayata geçirmiş bulunmaktayız. Ruh sağlığı hizmetlerini güçlendirme programı, sorun yönetimi ve fazlası, kendi kendine yardım ve fazlası, gelişimsel bozukluğu veya geriliği olan çocukların annelerine yönelik beceri eğitimi gibi programlar uyarlanmış ve ilgili personellere de eğitimleri verilmiş durumdadır. Bu eğitimlerin yanı sıra ruhsal engelli bireylerin hakları ve iyileşme yaklaşımı konusunda farkındalık oluşturmak adına sağlık personelinin eğitim almasını da sağlıyoruz. Değerli katılımcılar, COVID-19'un ruh sağlığı üzerine olumsuz etkilerini hepiniz için malumdur. Bu etkilere bağlı olarak Dünya Sağlık Örgütü Avrupa bölgesinde ruh sağlığının önemine ve farkındalığına dair önemli bir ivme yakalandı. Bu ivmenin kaybedilmeden somut çıktılara dönüştürmesinin elzem olduğunu ve bu fırsatı iyi değerlendirmemiz gerektiğini de düşünmekteyiz. Bu ve benzeri etkinliklerin ise bu hedef doğrultusunda önemli birer adım olduğuna inanıyoruz. Bu sebeple emeği geçen herkese teşekkürlerimi sunuyor. Hepinize başarılı toplantılar diliyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tolga Tolunay, for your words and also for hosting us in Ankara, in Turkey. I have a pleasure to co-moderate this session with Dr. Natasha Azopardi-Muscat, Director of the Division of Country Health Policies and Systems in the WHO Regional Office for Europe. And I would like to invite Natasha to the podium for the opening statement and for moderating the session further.
Thank you very much, dear Batir. Good morning. It's really and truly a pleasure for me to be here with you in Ankara. Minister Tolunay, thank you very much for your welcoming introduction and remarks, distinguished experts, colleagues, and friends. And here we are at the second meeting of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition, which is coinciding also with the third annual conference of the social inclusion for persons with mental disabilities here in Turkey. And I can hardly believe that it was just over 1 year ago that we set out to build a coalition for mental health, because we felt that in order to make real and sustainable change in mental health, we had to take a broad perspective. But in order to translate this vision into reality, we must now focus on transforming mental health systems. What does this require? I will leave you with 5 takeaway messages today. Firstly, it requires the attention of informed and passionate leaders in government and national and international organizations, united by a vision and a strategy. And because of the COVID pandemic, we see that many leaders are actually taking on this challenge, getting interested in mental health, even at the highest levels of government, beyond the health sector itself. Secondly, it requires a health workforce that is not only equipped with the necessary skills to help those with mental health conditions, but also who is sufficiently supported to do the best work that they can. Third, it requires the creativity and commitment of civil society organizations, not those just specializing in mental health, but those whose work impacts mental health, those working in areas such as arts, culture. We had a beautiful introduction with the music today. Sports and other activities, because we are not only seeking to work with those who are working with those who are unwell and ill, but we are also seeking to work with those who, through the activities that they promote, actually support and sustain mental health and well-being. Fourth, it requires academic study too, to the pursuit of better data, new evidence, innovation, but also to make sure that what we introduce actually does produce health gain and does not harm. And finally, and above all, it requires the involvement of people living with mental health conditions to be recognized for the essential role that they play in championing action and breaking down stigma. I'm certain that all of us today gathered in this room and online understand that systemic change is challenging to implement. And more so, there is now also a sense of urgency for the actions that we need to take. And over the coming days, we shall be able to appreciate the ongoing work that is taking place in several groups to make the vision of the coalition a reality. We shall also have the privilege to hear of the wonderful work that our colleagues in Turkey are doing as part of the Social Inclusion for Persons with Mental Disabilities project. Allow me to thank my colleagues in the mental health flagship team headed by Dr. Lydia Lazeri, members, supporters, observers of the coalition, partners, all of you who have chosen to join us on this exciting journey, especially those of you with lived experience, who, let me be clear, we include not just to tick a box, but to ensure that our policies and actions are relevant and meaningful. I am beginning to feel that we are on our way to realizing the vision of this coalition, an ambitious one indeed. A coalition which exists because of the foresight and determination of our regional director, Dr. Hans Kluge, who unfortunately is not able to be with us today because he is currently on a mission in Ukraine, and a key focus of his mission has actually been mental health. But he has taken the time to convey his greetings and remarks by recording a video statement, which I now invite you to watch with me. Can we please have the video statement? Thank you.
Consider mental health to be a greater concern than cancer. We feel this urgency, every single one of us, as well as a burden of responsibility as our region tackles crises old and new. We see the lingering effects of COVID-19, people grappling with long COVID and healthcare systems, struggling to recruit and retain staff, especially in the area of mental health. We see an escalation of armed conflicts, including the war in Ukraine, and conflict on the border of Armenia and Azerbaijan, disrupting millions of lives and livelihoods. We see a rise in the cost of living, contributing to increased distress and difficulty in affording mental health services, especially for the most vulnerable. We see stigma and discrimination impacting too many lives in our region. Yet, looking back over the years since the coalition was launched, I am humbled by how much has already been achieved. In February, as we work to approve all those who expressed interest, we held a technical meeting to explore what the work of the coalition would look like in practice, including members' interests. In May, experts and professionals from across the region laid out in detail the coalition's challenges, goals and priority actions for the next 5 years. We are now creating a framework to ensure the quality of mental health care for children and adolescents, together with the Quality of Care and Patient Safety Office in Athens. The framework aims to make mental health services across the region better and more appealing to young people. Earlier this month in Athens, at a 3-day series of events, young people loudly and explicitly called for not just a seat at the table, but to head the table, and we have listened. We are mapping the tools, guidance and interventions that are available in the European region together with our collaborating centers. This work is underway, and you will hear about initial findings over the next 2 days. We are assessing the status of protocols and practices in areas such as policy implementation and mental health in primary healthcare, which will inform our advice and recommendations to member states and stakeholders. Today, we are also marking the 4th year of the social inclusion of people with mental disabilities project and the remarkable progress that Turkey has made in the past decade in transforming mental health and disability services, making them more inclusive. Funded by the European Union, this is another example of national commitment and leadership demonstrated firmly by the Turkish government, of international cooperation and support shown by the European Union, and all brought together by the expertise and technical guidance of the World Health Organization. We are very proud of the achievements of this collaboration and hope through this meeting that it can serve as an example to other countries in their mental health reforms. Let me close by saying that although we need urgent action, a hasty reflex can never bring about lasting change. We cannot let this urgency drive us to act without careful consideration. We cannot rely on traditional modes of mental health care, which isolate those with mental health conditions. We cannot return to reactive ad hoc policies and initiatives, under-resourced and limited in scope due to stigma. Such actions have time and again failed to address the many mental health needs of our region. Dear friends, this coalition is a vehicle of innovation within mental health. Never before have so many from so many different walks of life joined forces to act on mental health. This is possible because the coalition has cooperation at its heart. It is a space to benefit from the immense richness of experience, knowledge, data and perspectives that makes our region so unique. I wish you 2 days of innovation, courage, vision, but also pragmatic solutions. Thank you very much. Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure you will agree that this statement is really setting the tone for our work these 2 days ahead. It is a statement, as you can see, that is delivered very deliberately, but also from the heart. And now we have a second video statement. I said earlier that mental health is very much at the top of the agenda beyond the health sector itself. And it gives me pleasure to announce that we have also a video statement from Alar Karis, the President of Estonia. Can we have the second video statement, please?
Honored ministers, dear members of the coalition, ladies and gentlemen. We have an important task ahead of us. This may be the most important mission of our century, next only to defeating anti-democratic aggressions and averting the climate catastrophe. We have a duty of building societies whose prosperity and resilience relies on supporting the physical and mental well-being of people, instead of damaging them. The COVID-19 pandemic has really been the wake-up call that made us notice whether societies are failing our people. Our awareness of and response to mental health issues has been one of them. Today, we can no longer ignore the extent and the cost of a mental health burden. This coalition is a good example of the valuable initiatives have been launched in response to the challenge. We are moving from debate to actions. Now let us keep the momentum and design a coordinated response to mental health issues on a local, regional and global level. As the President of Estonia, I have made mental health of young people one of my key themes. I was shocked when I heard the statistics that between 2015 and 2020, the number of suicide attempts among young people doubled. The suicide rate of young people in Estonia is 2.5 times higher than the EU average. Behind these statistics are stories, real and sad stories of terrible losses. During my time in office, I have visited many schools and had numerous meetings with young people. And no matter where we start our conversation, we end up discussing mental health. I have heard those stories from principals, teachers, and young people themselves. Everywhere, teachers are worried and overwhelmed. Young people feel anxious, and mental health specialists admit the lack of capacity to support those who need help. These are the results of many years of undone work, amplified by the plethora of ongoing crises. But there are encouraging signs of initiatives that aim to turn the tides. Estonia has a few things to share. For example, many of our schools and kindergartens use evidence-based programs to reduce bullying. Socio-emotional skills are being integrated into curricula of all levels. Parenting programs help to break unproductive behavior patterns that many of us still have. Just yesterday, we had the first meeting of a governmental committee on prevention. Importantly, 6 cabinet ministers out of 15 are part of this panel that discusses interventions in many critical areas, including mental health. 6 ministers. This indicates that for us, mental health is not just a health issue. It is an education issue, a security issue, an economic issue. Every unit of the state shares the responsibility of being part of a response to mental health challenges. And we aim that every decision is made considering its impact on the well-being of people. Especially in crisis situations, securing and supporting mental health and psychosocial well-being needs to be a guiding principle. It is part of the psychological defense of a country, making it more resistant to external and internal disruptions. Prevention is a key. It is essential that the young people today grow up knowing how to manage their feelings, recognize potential mental health problems, and act to take care of themselves. We all need to be able to notice people in need of help and provide them with mental health first aid. As countries, we all also need to build strong and sustainable systems of professional help. I have focused today on the mental health of young people because unnoticed and untreated problems during this age will only grow in the future. However, other areas reflected in the working group themes of this coalition are important too. An urgent challenge has been providing necessary psychological support to Ukrainian refugees. We are thankful for WHO and UN agencies for cooperation in this respect. Next to our full efforts to ending this aggression, we must make sure that we cope with the war trauma so it will not ruin the lives of millions of Europeans. There are already too many victims. Ladies and gentlemen, the world is not returned to normal, that is, to a time before the war and pandemic. Partly because the old normal used to mean that mental health issues were swept under the carpet. The new normal is making psychological well-being a central principle in our societies. Thank you for your attention.
Again, a wonderful statement illustrating the commitment of the Cabinet of Ministers, but also I really like that last sentence, the psychological well-being is one of the goals of any modern society to uphold. And it gives me great pleasure now, continuing very much at the level of presidents and heads of states. We are grateful that we have with us Diana Pon, who is advisor to the President of Romania, and Tatiana Lomachina, who is advisor to the President's Commissioner on Barrier-Free Society Issues in Ukraine. Please come and take a seat, and thank you very much for joining us. We are very privileged to have you both with us today. We know the efforts that are being made to promote mental health in your respective countries. And I would like to start by giving the word to Dr. Diana Pon. Thank you for having been with us since the very beginning, since the first summit we had in Athens when we were examining the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on mental health.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Good morning, dear organizers, excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm genuinely delighted to participate today on behalf of the Presidential Administration of Romania in such an impressive high-level event dedicated to the mental health and social inclusion of people with mental disabilities. An initiative that, at the same time, reflects another incredible milestone that the Pan-European Coalition is setting in its roadmap. Therefore, I congratulate WHO, Euro, Turkey, and all stakeholders here and online today for this continued commitment and strong determination on the way forward. This room, distinguished speakers and audience are stark proof of this endeavor. We know that mental health can become debilitating regardless of people's age, socioeconomic status, or perceived success. The unmet needs for mental health services were significantly high before the unfolding pandemic, with more than 70% of our population lacking proper care. With the outbreak, the demand for mental health treatment increased, yet critical services in most countries have been disrupted due to pandemic. Fast forward to 2022, and we are faced with invasion, refugee crisis, economic crisis, and pandemics, all part of a new normal that certainly affects our mental health. But grand opportunities are found in times of greatest challenges. Despite the devastation we face today, with long-term consequences hard to assess, we are still met with a unique opportunity to invest in mental health services, and reduce inequalities. And while the immediate priorities may have evolved and changed under the pressure of significant stressor of our times, there has never been a higher request for mental health support. Therefore, the focus on our work must be kept central. We need to strengthen our efforts to meet our communities' emerging needs, particularly those most vulnerable. Better health outcomes for people treated in primary care. Improve prevention and early diagnosis. Reduce chronicity, human resource training and competencies. Better acceptability linked to reduced stigma are all strands of whole of society approach in mental health. Implementing effective intervention toward mental health reflects not only a renewed investment in terms of social inclusion and respect for human rights, but also in terms of economic development. Mental health support have shifted from a nice to have to an actual business imperative, and the best way to move forward is together. Working together, learning from each other, sharing our experiences and coordinating our actions will lay an incredible foundation for the work ahead. Solidarity is key. Creating new partnership and expanding our stakeholder engagement is essential to ensure progress. We must seize these opportunities to scale up our efforts and take them to new grounds. I'm convinced that this inspiring event will provide an excellent new benchmark to guide our action. So I wish you all best of success, and I thank you, Natasha.
Thank you very much, Diana, for really highlighting some important messages. I would like to pick out particularly the point that you make, that mental health, even for employers nowadays and business organizations, has become a business imperative, part of their performance dashboard, so to say. So thank you very much for highlighting that important point. And now I would like to give the floor to Tatiana Lomakina. Tatiana, we are looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being here with us.
Your Excellency, Deputy Minister of Health of the Republic of Turkey, Director of the Division of Country Health Policies and Systems, WHO representative in Turkey, and WHO colleagues. Dear Excellence, distinguished guests, it is great pleasure for me as a representative of the President of Ukraine and honor to be today and convey greeting from Ukraine at the event of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition, the coalition that united us around mental health. Today, during the military invasion of the Russian Federation to Ukraine, we realize the value of mental health more than ever. Every person in Ukraine faces two realities today. One is modern world of 21st century with its opportunities, innovations, planning for sustainable development, and involving well-being of every person across the life course. And of another side, sudden hostilities, missile strikes of civilian infrastructure, death, loss, grief, human rights violations of unprecedented scale, unmet needs and broken plans. However, that helps us to overcome these times, that makes us really strong and leads us to the win in human-centeredness. We realize that every single person is of great value and respect the diversity of all. Ukrainian family, men and women, Vitaly and Ulyana Pcholkины, live as wheelchair users, spent in Bucha several weeks under occupation this year, without electricity, gas, water, that survived hunger, lack of communication, blockade, constant shelling. It was extremely cold. It was impossible to reach them from outside to support. They left for Lviv under fire on their own. They joined a group of friends. Now, they help with evacuation of people with spinal injuries and engage in advocacy for the rights of people with disabilities. It is an individual story, and from a side of the society, our people mobilized from the first day of the Russian invasion, self-organized into the volunteer movements and supported each other enormously. We learned a lot of this emergency. On the one hand, we realized one more time the great potential of the Ukrainian society to be kind, be patient, be truly supportive and respectful. And on another hand, potential of the individual Ukrainians is taking a leadership role even in crisis situation when disability happens. And these two phenomena makes us optimistic, as they both are the main ingredients of the environment which we call in Ukrainian a barrier-free. It aims to enable people with disabilities realize their potential and live fulfilling lives in their communities. The Barrier-Free Handbook, launched under the auspices of First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, earlier this month, emphasizes these messages and aims to combat stigma and discrimination, change the culture and attitudes in the society toward people with disabilities, and foster to their leadership. Almost 6,000 people with disabilities who reside in mental health institutions in Ukraine were evacuated to safe territories of Ukraine and abroad. The war and related humanitarian crisis placed us face to face with our pre-existing issues, the issue of long-term institutions, which are unfortunately often associated with human rights violations. We planned transformation of the system before the war, and we undertaken first steps. We introduced community mental health team service model with the Ministry of Health of Ukraine with support of WHO. This service model was designed as an alternative to institution-based care, and our WHO colleague from Ukraine will tell more about it later. And second, conducted assessment of institutions for children with disabilities and prepare conditions for their life with support for graduates in small group houses with the Ministry of Social Policy. We started transformation and strengthening of mental health system before the war. We continue scaling up this work during the war, and we will do more during recovery and reconstruction. Meanwhile, I would like to thank our partners and neighboring countries for hosting our people with disabilities during difficult times in Ukraine. We are confident that more strategic investment in Ukraine is investment in our people, in their recovery and well-being. That is why the First Lady of Ukraine, Olena Zelenska, initiated the National Program on Mental Health and Psychosocial Support, which envisions strengthening mental health system and services, and also raised mental health awareness and introduced self-help stress management practices among the population. We pay the highest possible price for our experience. And as a part of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition, we are keen to share our experience with our other countries. We thank WHO for the leadership in mental health in Ukraine, region, and globally. And just at the time I speak to you, the WHO Director for Europe, Dr. Hans Kluge, is taking to Ukrainian people and my colleagues in Dnipro city in the eastern part of Ukraine during this fourth mission to Ukraine this year. I thank you and I wish you a fruitful event for all of us and looking forward to our future experience exchange these days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. And I had the opportunity to witness, of course, also the steps that were being taken to innovate and strengthen the mental health system even before the war. And I look forward also to returning shortly to Ukraine. I think many countries are going to be able to learn very valuable lessons about the way in which you have really mobilized at all levels the importance of mental health and psychosocial support. So thank you also for taking the time to be with us today. And in order to close this session, we have one final video statement from Ambassador Nikolaos Meelandrut, who is the head of the EU delegation to Turkey. We are very grateful to the support of the EU that has enabled us to have this meeting, but I'm also happy to say that WHO, Regional Office for Europe and the European Union are working together very closely as we realize that complementing and supporting mutual efforts will be for the benefit of really advancing and promoting mental health and well-being in the region. I think the address from the President of Estonia made it very clear that we owe it primarily also to our younger generation to take action immediately and now. So can we have the final video statement, please?
Dear representatives of ministries, dear World Health Organization directors, distinguished participants, members of the press, I'm very pleased to greet you from Ankara. Going through difficult days of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have all learned that health is not just the absence of a disease. This pandemic has also demonstrated how vulnerable our mental health can be. Mental health problems had affected over 85 million citizens in the EU even before the pandemic, which has put mental health under pressure like never before. Mental health is now among the top health issues on the EU agenda. Good mental health includes our emotional, social and psychological well-being. We need to invest in this area more than ever. In the EU, the total cost of mental ill health exceeds 4% of GDP, or 600 billion euro. That is why the EU for Health initiative supports the sharing and implementation of best practices. A new joint action aims at preventing depression, suicide and health system reform that will support transformation of mental health services. Our goal is to move towards providing more person-centered, community-based services. The World Health Organization Regional Office for Europe is our partner to implement suicide prevention and innovative mental health system reforms. Under the Health for EU program, we have also launched a new Healthier Together initiative to reduce the burden of major non-communicable diseases. This will help reduce health inequalities and social exclusion of people with long-term conditions. I would also like to congratulate Turkey for its determination to provide effective, appropriate and efficient community-based support services. They do help and empower people with mental disorders. Since 2010, the EU has been supporting Turkey in this ambitious process of shifting away from institutional care, providing guidance for a community-based mental health service model. This transition is offering persons with mental health problems a comprehensive care in line with our shared vision. The ongoing EU-funded project, Social Inclusion of Persons with Mental Disabilities, has been a success. I wish to congratulate the responsible Turkish ministries and the World Health Organization for their efforts. Today, International's conference is an excellent platform for enhancing experience in addressing regional and national challenges, meeting our objectives and developing policy recommendations. The new good practices presented at this conference will help our societies through difficult times and beyond. Thank you, and I wish you success in your important work.
And then I would like to hand over to Batir to close this session.
Well, I would like to thank, first of all the speakers for a very interesting statements and encouraging ones. I also would like to thank our partners for support in implementing the mental health activities at the country level. And with this, I think we can close this part of the session and proceed to the coffee break. Thank you.
So thank you very much for returning. I hope that you have had also an opportunity to reflect on what we heard in our first very rich session. And we have another exciting session happening now too. So I would also ask you to take your seats and give us your full attention. And it's now my pleasure to hand over the floor to Dr. Batir, who will be moderating this session. Batir, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. The participants, welcome back from the coffee break. And before we start, I would like to invite the speakers for this session to join us on the podium here. So may I invite Meshut Demir-Dogan, Ines Malia Sarmento and Dion Ras, as well as Deborah Kestel and Lydia Lazeri. Please join us here. Lütfen. Dear colleagues, we are very proud to host the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition meeting in Turkey and combine it with the annual meeting of the Project on Social Inclusion of Persons with Mental Disabilities. Implementation of the mental health flagship program, big ideas and recommendations at country level is crucial. And in this regard, allow me to share with you brief information on the WHO activities in the area of mental health in Turkey. The mentioned Social Inclusion of Persons with Mental Disabilities project is implemented jointly by WHO in close collaboration with the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services, with the financial support from the EU delegation in Turkey. The overall objective of the project is to enable the social inclusion of people with mental disabilities through provision of quality, community-based support services. The project is an important tool for creating a national model of community-based care services for people with mental disabilities. The project can be seen as a benchmark in the direction of deinstitutionalization, which is the most important priority for ensuring human rights for persons with disabilities. It is also aimed to advocate for the rights of people with mental health conditions in line with the Convention of Persons with Disabilities, as well as with other human rights conventions. The workforce development and upskilling were prioritized within the project implementation. Training models of WHO have been adopted to bring the country workforce in line with the WHO standards. Project activities were important to deal with stigma among health professionals and in society in general. Within the project, evidence-based policy making, planning, implementation, and regulation of services for people with mental disabilities have been supported. As you may know, Turkey still hosts the biggest number of refugees, mainly from Syria. It's around 4 million. The country office has also supported implementation of a large mental health component through the Refugee Health Program, mainly in capacity strengthening of health professionals, as well as by generating evidence for decision making. Let me conclude here and thanks once again our partners, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services, and also our donor, European Union delegation, for dedication and support to this project. With this, I would like to proceed further with this session, and we have several video statements, video greetings. I would like to ask and invite Minister of Health of Iceland, Mr. Willum Thorsson, to present his video statement. Can we have the video statement of the Minister of Health of Iceland, please?
Dear ministers, speakers, moderators, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted and honored to participate in this important second meeting of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition. We share the dedication to our common goal of vital improvements in mental health. It is my hope that these 2 days of meetings will inspire us and that we will gain valuable new ideas that will propel our efforts forwards for the greater good. There have been many important developments in mental health in Iceland in the past few decades. The focus on human rights and empowerment in mental health is an invaluable step forward. So is deinstitutionalization and the emphasis on providing integrated mental health care in the community. Recognizing that prevention is an integral facet of improving mental health has also moved us greatly forward. Perhaps one of the most significant breakthroughs in improving mental health on a national and global level is the realization that we need to view mental health as a continuum and in the context in which we find ourselves throughout our lifespan. Hence, mental health is a venture that requires the dedication, collaboration, and financing of many systems such as healthcare, educational institutions, social services, and judicial system. We need to focus not only on collaboration, but co-production. It is invaluable to be able to build a trusting, co-productive relationship between policymakers, service sectors, and the people who use the services. Ladies and gentlemen, we are public servants. We need to genuinely listen to people with lived experiences and partner with them to create new and better solutions. In Iceland, we practice the whole of government and the whole of society approach in promoting and protecting health. Our agenda emphasizes engagement and cooperation of governance in all policy arenas and all sectors. Iceland recognizes the importance of science and evidence-based policies and innovations. We respect that all people have the right to make their own informed decisions about their health and that they have the right to treatments that have been scientifically proven successful. I am delighted to report that we have 3 recent important policies focusing on improving mental health in Iceland: the new mental health policy, the national health policy, and the public health policy. Iceland's new mental health policy was created with a focus on collaboration and co-production. It was based on extensive analysis and wide collaboration and consultation with the public, academia, the healthcare sector, NGOs, and people with lived experiences and other stakeholders. The four cornerstones of the new policy are mental health promotion, prevention, and early intervention. Effective and timely interdisciplinary mental health care that is coordinated within and between systems that support mental health and well-being. Engaging and empowering people with lived experience and harnessing innovation and science to build a comprehensive and accessible mental health system. Ladies and gentlemen, these are indeed exciting times. We are taking important steps toward a healthier future for us all. We stand united in our common goal. We all have the right to good mental health, and we will join forces to promote better mental health for us all. Enjoy your meeting, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, and thank you for mentioning prevention, importance of prevention, and whole of a government, whole of a society approach, as well as the role of science in evidence-made policy making. The next video statement is from Mary Butler, Minister of State with responsibility for mental health and older people from Dublin, Ireland. Can we have the statement, please?
Good afternoon. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you today. I regret I cannot be there in person with you at what looks to be a fantastic two-day event. Firstly, I would like to thank the moderators of this session and to acknowledge the other speakers in the opening session. It is excellent to see the coming together of people for 2 days of international collaboration in mental health. There is much to be gained from knowledge sharing in this space. In Ireland, our national mental health policy sharing the vision, a mental health policy for everyone, is an action-orientated, outcome-focused policy which adopts a life cycle and a public health approach that places the individual at the centre of service delivery. It aims to enhance mental health supports across the broad spectrum, from mental health promotion, prevention and early intervention to specialist mental health service delivery. Many of the short-term recommendations have already been progressed. These include significant developments in areas such as digital mental health services, perinatal mental health, the national clinical mental health programmes and reform of the mental health legislation. This reform of the legislation will provide for a more person-centred approach that centres around the experience of the individual accessing services and ensuring we are meeting our human rights obligations under instruments such as the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Connecting for Life, our national suicide reduction strategy, provides the framework for reducing suicide in Ireland. Connecting for Life was extended by 4 years to 2024, reflecting the Irish Government's ongoing support of the valuable evidence-based work to reduce suicide arising from the strategy's commitments. Importantly, though, mental health is not a matter for the health section alone. The reform promised by sharing the vision and connecting for life cannot be achieved without measures being taken by other government departments and state agencies. As the implementation of the policy's recommendations is therefore a whole of government priority, the implementation plans have been developed with colleagues and partners from across government. I am also happy to say that in Ireland we have had a record level of investment in mental health for 2023. The significant investment will enable continued implementation of many of the service developments envisaged in our national mental health policies, which will impact children, adolescents, adults and older people. In terms of the work of the Mental Health Coalition, Ireland has been specifically involved in the work related to child and adolescent mental health, especially focusing on developing quality indicators. This work aligns with our domestic priorities and commitments. While I am unable to be with you in person, I am pleased that my officials have been able to attend to partake in the international collaboration and knowledge sharing in the important area of mental health. I wish you all the best for an enjoyable and productive 2 days. Slán go fóill.
Thank you for the good words, Madam Minister, and also for mentioning the importance of international collaboration in addressing mental health issues. The next video statement is from the Minister of Health of Lithuania, Arūnas Dulkis. Can we have, please, the video statement?
Ministers, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you in the second meeting of WHO Pan-European Mental Health Coalition and share the context of Lithuanian way of mental health system transformation. Using examples of positive change from across the globe, it is obvious that every country, no matter its situation, has many opportunities to significantly improve mental health for its adults and children. Transforming mental health in Lithuania today means strengthening community-based care for all in need. At the heart of mental health reform lies a major restructurization of mental health services, focusing on specialized, innovative, integrated psychosocial interventions. What does it mean in actions? Firstly, it means investing in human resources to equip them with the skills for providing evidence-based services. Secondly, it means changing old management practices, improving patient-centered culture. Thirdly, it means learning from international community best practices. Unfortunately, people with mental health conditions still experience a wide range of human rights violations all over the world. In order to change current practices towards right-based, recovery-oriented services, we need to transform our attitude and approach to promote and protect mental health. What can help us to achieve this? Lithuania has already started the implementation of WHO's Quality Rights Initiative as a tool for better protection of human rights. I do believe that the implementation of long-term evidence-based communication campaign will bring results in the reduction of stigma associated with mental disorders and improvement in mental health literacy. I have no doubt that we will more and more listen to the voices, priorities, and expertise of people with lived experience. We have already learned that the best way to meet the need of services is to ask and listen to people who use them. Due to this, we have already started with the national program of mental health ambassadors. I truly appreciate and thank World Health Organization, European Commission, and other European partners who work together in the implementation of changes in Lithuania. I wish all of you productive and rewarding experiences.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dulkis, for sharing a Lithuanian experience and for emphasizing on the importance of community-based services, patient-centered services, and human rights. With that, we can proceed with the next speakers, and we have a pleasure of having today with us Mesut Demir Doğan, President of the Associations of Friends with Schizophrenia. We all talked about importance of involvement of people affected by the mental health problems. So with that, it's a great pleasure to have you with us, and the floor is yours, please.
Herkese merhaba, ben Mesut Demir Doğan. Şizofreni Dostları Derneği Dernek Başkanlığı'nı 22 sene yürüttüm. Bu geçen ay derneği kapatmak zorunda kaldık. Maddi imkansızlıklar nedeniyle derneği kapatmak zorunda kaldık. 22 yıldır dernek başkanlığı yapıyorum. Ayrıca 35 yıldır da ruh sağlığı hizmeti alan birisiyim. 35 yıllık bir deneyim var ruh sağlığı hizmeti aldığım için. Onları sizlerle paylaşmak, geçmişle bugün arasında bir mukayese yapmak istiyorum. İzin verirseniz. Öncelikle Dünya Sağlık Örgütü'ne, Avrupa Delegasyonu'na, Sağlık Bakanımıza, Aile ve Sosyal Hizmetler Bakanlığımıza çok teşekkür ediyorum. Bu tür bir organizasyonu gerçekleştirdikleri için. Evvelki toplantılara da katılmıştım, takip ediyorum. Gayet güzel ve çok güzel işler çıkıyor. O anlamda tekrardan teşekkür etmek istiyorum toplantı için. Ayrıca bir teşekkür edeceğim birkaç kurum var burada. Dediğim gibi 35 yıllık bir hastalık hikayesi olan birisiyim ve geçmişte sadece hekim muayenesi ve ilacını al, evine git, evde ilaç kullan, bir ay sonra gel gibi bir tedavi yöntemiyle benim hastalığım başladı. Ve yalnızdım, kimseden bilgi alamıyordum, herhangi bir destek alamıyordum. O yıllardan bu yıllara geldik, onları bir mukayese edeceğim. 2000'li yıllardan sonra Sağlık Bakanlığımızın bu konuya eğilmesi, belki de Avrupa Birliği'ne girme sürecinde bu da tetiklemiş olabilir ama gerçekten çağdaş bir seviyeyi yakalamak için bu gerekliydi. Toplumun sağlığı merkezleri 2008'den sonra ilk pilot bölge olarak Bolu'da kuruldu. Ve şu an Türkiye genelinde herhalde 200'ün üzerinde toplumun sağlığı merkezleri var. Orada çalışan tüm hizmet veren insanlara buradan teşekkür ediyorum. Çok gerçekten başarılı bir çalışma yürütüyorlar. Dernekteki arkadaşlarla sohbetlerimizde, geri dönüşlerde sürekli takip ediyorum. TRSM'de neler yapıyorsunuz, neler yapılıyor, bunları takip ediyorum. Gerçekten yaklaşık 10 yıldır mükemmel bir çalışma var. O anlamda tebrik etmek istiyorum. Bu arada da tabii bir pandemi süreci yaşadık. Pardon. Bu süreçte Sağlık Bakanlığımız gerçekten süreci çok iyi yönettiler ve pandemi sürecini atlattık. O anlamda da kendilerine çok teşekkür ediyorum. Onun haricinde bu toplumun sağlığı merkezlerinde verilen rehabilitasyon desteği, bence hani daha evvelki toplantılarda söylüyorum, ömür boyu rehabilitasyon olmaz. Oradan aldıkları destekle bir süre sonra iş ortamlarına, daha çok gençler için söylüyorum, çalışma isteği olan insanlar için söylüyorum. Oradan destek aldıktan sonra çalışma hayatına geçmek istiyorlar. Dernekte ben bunu çok sık yaşıyorum. Bana iş bulabilir misin? Çalışmak istiyorum. Beni kimse anlamıyor. Nereye gitsem hasta olduğumu söylesem beni işe almıyorlar gibi zorluklarla hayat sürdürüyoruz. Ve ailemize bağımlı olarak genelde yaşıyoruz ve bu bizi üzüyor, aileye bağımlı olmak. Bireysel olarak yaşamak istiyoruz. O bireysel yaşamı geçmek için de bakanlıkların, ilgili bakanlıkların bize destek vermesi gerekiyor. Mesela şöyle bir kafamda fikir oluştu. TRSM'lerden sonra belki TRSM İş ve İşçi Kurumu arasında bir protokolle oradan destek alan kişiler kendini iyi hissettiklerinde o protokol karşılığında o kişilerin işe girmesini kolaylaştırmak gerekiyor. Bunu sağlamak lazım. Yani TRSM tamam bir başarıyı yakaladık ama oradan sonraki adım bence çalışma hayatına geçmesi kişilerin. Yeni çıkan antipsikotik ilaçlarla birlikte ilaçların yan tesirleri de çok azaldı, eskisi kadar ağır tesirleri yok. Kişi iş hayatına katılabilir veya öğrenci ise öğretim hayatında devam ettirme şansını yakalayabilir. Burada öğretim kurumlarında da tabii biraz bu tür rahatsız olan kişilere kolaylaştırıcı olması gerekiyor. O da Milli Eğitim Bakanlığı'na bağlı bir şey. Bunları belirtmek istiyorum. Pratikte yaşadığımız sorunlar bunlar. Dediğim gibi aileye bağımlı yaşamak istemiyoruz. Bizim de çalışma hakkımız var, bunu kullanmak istiyoruz. Tedaviye ulaşım hakkımız var. O anlamda bir sıkıntı yok. Sağlık anlamında ilaçlarımızı alıyoruz. Toplum sağlığı merkezleri artık evimize çok yakın merkezler, gidip oradan destek alıyoruz. Bu anlamda bir şeyleri başardık ama sonraki adımlar dediğim gibi işe girme konusunda, stigma konusunda çok sıkıntılar yaşıyoruz. Ve bireysel yaşamak istiyoruz. Kimseye bağımlı olmadan. Onun ezikliğini yaşamak istemiyoruz. Aile ekonomisine zarar vermek istemiyoruz. O anlamda da bizim gibi engelli kategorisinde değerlendirilen gruplardanız. Bize devlet konut bulma konusunda bireysel yaşama geçmemizde bize destek olmasını umuyoruz. Bu konut sorunumuz çok sıkıntılı. Toplum içinde yaşamak istiyoruz. Kaliteli bir yaşam bizim hakkımız. Bunun sağlanması için yeni desteklere ihtiyacımız var. Damgalamayla ilgili de çok ciddi sorunlar yaşıyoruz. Birçok iş yeri bizi hasta olduğumuzdan dolayı işe almıyor. Bunları belirtmek istiyorum. Zamanımız varsa aslında bu süreçte bir de şey vardı tabii, anestezisiz elektroşok yapılıyordu. O Türkiye'de artık anesteziyle yapılıyor. Bu tür dünyaya, Avrupa'ya entegre bir sağlık sisteminin olması güzel bir şey. Zaten sağlık da evrenselleşti artık, her şey. Buradaki herkes biliyor artık ne yapması gerektiğini çok iyi biliyor. Sadece resmi kurumların bize kolaylık sağlaması, önümüzü açması gerekiyor ve hızlı olmamız gerekiyor. Mesela 2010'da TRSM'ler açıldıktan sonra büyük bir adımdı ve arkası gelmedi. Dediğim gibi TRSM sonrası destekler gelmedi. İşte konut, bağımsız konutta erişme, bağımsız yaşam, hiç çalışamayan hastalar için yaşanabilir bir maaş verilmesi. Şu an hiçbir geliri olmayan, emekli olmayan, çalışmayan bir hastaya devlet yaklaşık 1200 lira maaş veriyor. Bu da dolar olarak şey yaparsak aylık 70 dolara tekabül eden bir para. Ancak sigara parasına bile yetmez bu para. Bunun iyileştirilmesi, eğer hiç çalışma gücü yoksa bu paranın verilmesi veya çalışma gücü varsa işe entegre edilmesi gerekiyor. Bu anlamda eksikliklerimiz var dediğim gibi. İnşallah önümüzdeki süreçte de yol haritamız bu şekilde olur diye düşünüyorum. Şimdilik aslında konuşacak çok şey var tabii, konuyu açar diye düşünüyoruz ama benim de zamanım sınırlı olduğunu biliyorum. Sivil toplum örgütleri arasında bir koordinasyon göremiyorum Türkiye'de maalesef. Egolarımız baskın çıkıyor herhalde, bilmiyorum. Uzlaşmayı sağlayamıyoruz, ortak çalışamıyoruz. Herkes bir şeyler yapmak istiyor. Aslında kolektif olarak bir şeyler yapabiliriz. Dediğim gibi dünyayı yeniden keşfetmeye gerek yok. Önümüzde yapılacak bir yol haritası hepimizin kafasında bence belirgin. Bence birlikte bunu sağlamak en güzeli olacaktır diye düşünüyorum. Teşekkür ediyorum söz verdiğiniz için.
Thank you very much, Mesut Demirdoğan, for...
Pardon, bir şey daha ilave edeceğim. Çok pardon. Bir de yıllardır ruh sağlığı yasamız yok bizim. Yani yıllar evvel oluşmuş yasalarla devam etmek zorundayız ve bu yasalar bizim için yeterli değil. Yeni bir ruh sağlığı yasasının çıkması için önümüzde seçimler var biliyorsunuz. Bu seçimlerde siyasi partilerin bunu gündeme alması konusunda tavsiyelerim olacak. Yani eğer ruh sağlığı yasasını çıkaracaklarsa, bizler için bir şeyler yapacaklarsa parti programlarına bunu yazsınlar ki önümüzdeki seçimlerden sonra hızlı bir şekilde bunlar hayata geçsin diye düşünüyorum. Bayağı büyük bir kitleyiz aslında. 650.000-700 bin psikiyatrik hasta var. Belki depresyonla birlikte 1-200. Diğer engelli gruplarla en azından 2-3 milyonluk bir kitleyiz. Birlik olursak eğer, haklarımızı ararsak bence hani daha hızlı yol alırız diye düşünüyorum. Teşekkürler ilave için.
Thank you very much again for sharing your view and experience and for openly talking about the existing problems, particularly about the barriers for employment, stigma, and also the lack of the legislation. And I believe that during these 2 days we will be also focusing on some of these issues to find solution. Thank you very much again. With this, I would like to give the floor to the youth advocates representing experts by experience with a joint statement by Ines Malia Sarmento and Dion Ras. The floor is yours, please.
Hello, everyone. I know I don't have much time, so pardon me if my greetings feel a bit cold and fast. But I would like to say that I'm glad that everyone that's here could make it, because it really fills the room with different kind of energy. It's different to be here in a space full of people than it is to be in a Zoom meeting, looking at screens. My name is Ines Malia Sarmento, and I am Portuguese, and I am also a dynamically disabled individual. For those who don't know, this is a relatively new term, but in a very simple way, dynamic just means that something varies within intensity, severity, time-wise, over a period of time. So you put that into disabilities, and you have someone like me who uses a wheelchair sometimes, who walks around, do have vision loss, so I do have a blind cane with me as well. And sometimes I might not need anything at all for a week, and then the next week I might be laying down for days. That is the dynamic in disability. And I'm mentioning this because I believe that we do have to mention disability when we talk about mental health. And I do not have any kind of medical credentials, but my expertise is by lived experience. And I chose to be here today and to stand here because I was left no other choice. I'm 22 and I'm speaking to so many knowledgeable people with so many backgrounds and great careers, and I don't feel intimidated anymore because I know that lived experience finally is being acknowledged by all of you. And it is refreshing to feel that. And I would like to suggest, even though I know it's not what a lot of people want, I would love to suggest to create another working package that would focus on the intersectionality between disability and mental health. I heard that stigma was introduced as a subgroup, but I strongly advise for that to be a group in itself as well, because stigma is in the root of everything that's related to mental health, and so is disability. And I loved everyone that has been here speaking and in videos. Everyone said a lot of important things, important highlights, so I won't repeat them. But it is a matter now to not just we young people to be heard, but to be believed. Because we might be young, but we know what we are talking about, because we live this every day. And it no longer is enough for people to patronize us and acknowledge, oh, you're so strong. Yeah, we have no other choice. We have no other choice but to get up every day and do something with our lives. Even if that means we just took a shower today, because depression can do that. And I really want to thank everyone for highlighting the fact that education is very important in schools regarding mental health as well. And I would love to see that with disability too. So implementing either a work packaging, that I would love to be a work package, or a subgroup on intersectionality for disability and mental health, I would love for it to be led by disabled individuals, just like me. And to have more diversity, because I am aware I am privileged just by the fact that I'm white, but still discriminated because I am a woman and I am disabled. And we as young people, besides knowing what we're talking about, we are no longer asking for action, we are demanding. We're standing our ground, and we really want to start with the right support. I really believe that we can do something. I really do think that, and I'm glad that I'm now part of the coalition, and I know I have that support now. And because young people have to be part of the process and the co-creation of everything, I'm going to change this to the statement now, and I would like to introduce Dion Raz. He is a student and a peer volunteer worker that organized the discussion we had in Athens earlier this month about youth participation. And the result of this discussion was a joint statement that we created with the help of all the young people that were present at Athens that unfortunately could not all be here today. And together we'll read the statement to you. So the joint statement on youth participation. Youth participation, the involvement of young people in decisions that affect their lives. It takes on many forms. Sometimes we become members of youth advisory councils or research panels. Other times we share our stories at conferences and workshops. At one such workshop taking place at the recent WHO meeting in Athens, we, the young members of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition, along with members of Youth Mental Health, chose to share our stories. Stories of mental and physical trauma, stories of abuse, of hurt. And every time we participate in events like this, we share our stories with the hope that it will be of help to someone, so the next person doesn't have to experience what we experienced. But telling your story over and over without action, without knowing what your input is being used for, without it having some sort of impact,
it becomes so easy to lose the motivation to participate. Why should we confront all those painful memories just for our voices to fall on deaf ears when we finally speak? We shared these frustrations with the WHO staff in Athens. The response we were met with was, "I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying." But without action on the WHO's part, what value does this statement have? The way youth participation is carried out is different in every institution, in every country. Sometimes young people feel like their input is handled correctly, like they are valued. Other times we hear stories of no follow-ups or briefing on research panels, of lacking diversity, of youth advisory councils that essentially have no power. Are we there to advise then, or are we there so you can say you listen to young people? With their voices and immense reach, the WHO has the opportunity to set an example for how young people should become involved in decisions that affect qualitatively good youth participation, what it looks like, and to involve young people in producing this advice.
We, the young members of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition, want to co-produce a framework for youth participation. We want to share which existing models of youth participation work and what situations they can be applied in. We want to share the best practices. We want to share what we've learned works and what we've learned does not work, because we're the ones carrying out your plans for youth participation. We are the ones that this affects, and likewise we are the fundamental stakeholders to having a real impact on young people's lives. We need you, the leaders in healthcare and professionals working on the ground, to understand how to properly brief young people and communicate your expectations of them. We need you to understand that underlying every criticism that we share, there is a need and there is a want. And repeating over and over that you're listening does not help us get to the core of what we need from you. If we get involved in workshops and activities, we need you to keep us updated and to allow us to advise you on how to keep us updated. A 5-page report isn't a good enough way of maintaining our motivation to keep participating. It's not enough to simply say that you want to have a conversation. We don't know who to talk to within an institution in order to have a chance at executing our ideas, a chance at having an impact. We don't need you to initiate the conversation itself. We need to be reminded that planning a meeting is something that you are open to doing, so that we gain the courage to initiate the conversation ourselves. Singular workshops with zero follow-up don't give us the time that we need to come up with valuable ways in which we can change youth participation. All that we have time for in 30 minutes is to feel frustrated with the way that things are. WHO staff, clinicians and researchers, lecturers and professors, policymakers and ministers, volunteer workers and all other attendees, once more, we want to co-produce a framework on youth participation that advises on how to best carry out youth participation. In order to make this happen, we need more discussions with people working in healthcare to discover how to best use your expertise for this framework. We invite you to come talk to myself, to Ines, to Anna Bailey, and to Catalina Popoviciu, so that we can plan the next steps. Thank you.
I just want to highlight the amazing work that Lydia is doing. Just thank you.
Dear Ines and Dion, thank you very much for presenting this joint statement, but also for sharing your personal view and emotions, and also emphasizing that the discrimination and stigma often can affect both people living with disabilities but also with mental health issues. Of course, involvement of the young generation into discussion and decision-making process is crucial, so please don't be intimidated and dare to advise. With that, we would proceed. We have a pleasure of having with us today Dr. Deborah Kestel, Director of the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse in WHO headquarters. And I would like to give the floor to Deborah, please.
Thank you, Batir, and thank you to my regional colleagues for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. You know, when you are at the global level, you are privileged because you have a global view and perspective, but you become farther away from where things really happen. And so for me, it's really a privilege to be here and listen to the stories that are being told and hopefully the discussions that will take place during these 2 days. Now, my task now is a bit harder after the testimonies that we hear, because I'm going to talk about something very distant from that, and is hopefully something that could have an impact on the life of people, and is the World Mental Health Report that we prepared and launched a couple of months ago. I'm going to take my time, so I'm not going, don't get too enthusiastic and speak too much. The idea is to present it to you so that you may be interested in looking for it and read it. One of the particularities of the report is that it's not written by scientists, it's written by a writer. And that means that it's easy to read and pleasant to read. And so it is available in, of course, fully in English. Executive summary is available in other UN languages, and the translation is ongoing in several languages. And the story of the report is that we thought, after 21 years of a previous similar report, that, and in the context of COVID and all the talking about mental health, we thought that it was time to see a bit where we are. And so to describe a bit what is going on, what is mental health, what is and what is not mental health, and why it is important to work and do better in mental health, and then how. That is, I think, one of the important issues, and the focus that we were following was to having in mind target audience like this one, policymakers. What is that we can tell that the world knows about how things could change and how things could be done differently. There are, for the first time in this kind of report, a number of narratives, voices from people that, like the ones today, are talking about their own experience, illustrating the good and the bad that has been happening in so many countries, as well as case studies, and many of you will find your own reality, maybe, hopefully, in the report. We describe the principles and the drivers in what do we understand, what do we mean by public mental health, and the principles are, I'm sure, pretty much known by you, but is already. But is we spent some time in trying to review definitions and readjust whatever was needed in order to make sure that we are clear in the meaning of mental health and psychosocial disabilities, as it is being called. And the idea is that to make clear that mental health is important for the reasons that are there, to connect, to function, to cope, to thrive. And if we don't get that, then it's going to be hard to have any further development of communities, societies, and countries. The role of the determinants is also pretty much described and analyzed to make sure that we understand that it's not the same, that it does matter where are you coming from, what is the context, family, community, social, and protective factors, risk factors, a bit of an update of all these issues. And then we go to the analysis of the data, what do we know today. I'm going a bit fast because the idea is to give you really a snapshot of what is in the report again, hoping that you will be curious to read one piece or the other. And so we analyze the data, and I'm not going to go with the details, but some of the data that we know, that we have been talking about the number of people with mental health conditions, that we talk about 1 in 8, even before the COVID, that was the number we were managing. We are talking about a huge rate of suicide, particularly among youth people, people with severe mental health conditions dying earlier than general population, and those are some of the issues that we present, hopefully in a very clear and systematic manner. We also analyze, based on the data that we manage as WHO, key gaps. And the issue of information is almost hard to believe that we know so little, that countries collect so limited information about people with mental health conditions. It's very hard to determine how many are out there in each country. Not even in many high-income countries, this data is collected. And apart from the information gap, we have a governance gap. We have assessed the number of countries that have a mental health policy or plan that has increased significantly over the last few years. But when you ask the countries how many of them are implementing the policy or the plan, then the number is very low. With the data we collected a couple of years ago, we were around 21% of countries declaring that they are implementing such a plan or policy. And the issue of the resources, the gap of the resources, it has been mentioned already, that is huge. It was a big disappointment when we collected the data in 2000 that showed that the percentage of the health budget that goes to mental health at global level didn't change. It is around 2%. So we have this huge burden, this very big prevalence of mental health, people with mental health conditions, but the budget allocated to that, to take care of that, is extremely low. And most of that budget, around 80%, 90% in some countries, goes to old-fashioned psychiatric institutions. So it's not available at the community level where people actually live. And therefore, then, there are no resources, human resources or resources, financial resources to develop a network of services, and therefore there is a service gap. We analyze and describe the benefits of change and why investing in mental health is important. And we are analyzing that from the public health perspective, and therefore how investing in mental health and ensuring mental health, proper mental health care will facilitate this advancing in public health in general. And we also analyze quite in detail the advantages of issues related to comorbidities, how investing in mental health will have a clear impact in other conditions that are more traditionally known as physical conditions, right? HIV, TB, etc., NCDs. The argument of human rights is crucial. It was mentioned already a few times, the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities and the implementation of this convention, and why it is a commitment that countries already have taken to promote and respect human rights, and therefore mental health service development is linked to that. The other main reason for investing in mental health then is the social and economic development. We know that mental health is linked to all the sustainable development goals, and poor mental health will have an impact in that development, and on the contrary, promoting and developing mental health care will facilitate this better achievement of the goals. This chapter looks in more detail how to make this change happen, and it is based on the health system strengthening, and we are firmly believing that we cannot go into a separated parallel system, but it has to be deeply integrated. So we analyze that, and here you have some of the examples that we are considering in the report, in the building blocks that are called for the health system. We are analyzing the three types of political commitment that are needed to drive the mental health agenda forward, and those are the express, so what we hear a lot these days, today, but also these days, weeks, months, right? This political commitment that is more talking about we need to do something for mental health. That's a big achievement. But then a bit less, we see the institutional commitment, and that's the policies and plans that we mentioned before that are being developed but not necessarily followed with resources for implementation to make the changes happen. And the third one, I mentioned already, the budgetary commitment, that is the one that needs definitely more development. We also analyze the issue of the competencies, because with a competent and motivated workforce is a key component in mental health. I don't know if there is any other area in the health sector that is so clearly based on the workforce almost exclusively, and we need to work on that, and we analyze what you have in that graph, the roles and responsibilities of each group of workforce in the health sector and beyond, that need to play a role in mental health. We have then promotion and prevention for change, is the analyzing what needs to happen. We start with promotion, and we, on one hand, explain and present what components of promotion and prevention are a responsibility of the health sector, and what is the role of the health sector in promoting that other sectors do promotion and prevention, right? Schools, workplace, etc., other systems. And then we prioritize three areas of prevention that I'm not going to go deeper into, but one is suicide prevention, because the numbers are scary and of big concern. It was mentioned also earlier this morning, and there are things that could be done to prevent suicide. So there is no reason why this is not happening. We know what needs to be done, and it could be done. It's just a matter of deciding. Sorry, I missed that slide. The second area that we go deeper analyzing is prevention in children and adolescents, and we are focusing there on the work that could happen, should happen at school. And the third area is mental health at work, where we promote, discuss new guidelines that we have produced that analyze precisely roles of employers and employees in the context of mental health at work. The last chapter that is my favorite, I have to confess, and is restructuring and scaling up care for impact. We are talking here about the reform of the services that need to take place in order to make this change happen. And we are proposing that model. Many of you may have remember a pyramid that we used to present to analyze the different levels of care. We thought that the pyramid was too simplistic, and we needed to come up with something different. And what you have there are three areas of work. In blue, let's say, bluish, are the mental health services that are needed to be developed. And you have a variety of services that are not just issues that we at the table decided that we wanted to include, but are areas or experiences that we collected from different countries that have some background and evidence of best practice. And that's what we included there. And then in the purple area, we are talking about mental health in the healthcare sector. What is that the general healthcare sector needs to take care of mental health in order to make sure that the system functions. We are talking, of course, about primary care, but we are talking about issues such as comorbidities, as I mentioned before, the role of general hospitals, etc. And then in orange are the services that are mental health services that are due to happen through other sectors, such as schools, labor, etc. We don't think that every country has to do it all. Hard to believe that this is happening, but we do firmly believe that every country can improve the current situation they have if they prioritize and decide which area they want to focus on and scale up and move forward in an ambition to get as far as they can according to their resources. There is no one model that could serve all. We know that. We already know that from our experience. We are in the region that has the most developed systems and examples, and still we know that the other countries in the same region are struggling to get something in place that will answer to their needs because the resources are what they are. So we need to find models that serve to all. Then we talk about the path to transformation. You know, in WHO we have this tendency to come up with numbers, the 10 recommendations, the 8 achievement goals, the whatever. We have always these numbers, maybe in an effort to make our ministers remember what we are trying to say. And here we come with 3, very easy, 3 paths to transformation that are anchored in the comprehensive mental health action plan, that is the action plan endorsed by all member states of the World Health Organization. 194 member states said mental health is important, we commit to do this. So what we are presenting here is how we believe could help them moving forward. And then the 3 paths for transformation to transformation. The first one is deepen value and commitment. That means mental health is important. That's it. We don't need to argue why it's important. It's important, and people with mental health conditions have the right to live the same life as anybody else with any other condition or not. It doesn't matter. It's a value, and we need to start from that point in order to move forward. And then the commitment comes from that, and the commitment means also then financial commitment and resources to move ahead. And then we need to strengthen mental health care, of course, because we are saying there are no services out there, no system of care to provide for the needs of those who have that necessity. And we need also to reshape environments. We need to make sure that the protective factors are strengthened and the risk factors are limited at home, in schools, everywhere. So with this, I'm finishing right on my 15 minutes, and I hope that a bit of curiosity to read the report and to learn more about this has been transmitted through this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for your very informative presentation. This kind of reports, global mental health report, it's a kind of a product we call in WHO technical products or public health goods. And their preparations involves all 3 levels of the organization. We start from the information gathering and analysis at the country level, regional level, and then it's all consolidated and produced at the headquarters level. But then the top-down approach, it needs to be disseminated, maybe adapted to the regional and country context, and most importantly, it's uptake and implementation at the country level. But thank you very much, Deborah. This really demonstrates the one WHO and involvement of all 3 levels. So with this, let me proceed to our last speaker, but not least, my dear colleague Lydia Lazeri, Regional Advisor for Mental Health at the WHO Regional Office for Europe. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, dear Batir, and thank you to the speakers before me for paving the way. I have a very easy task, actually, because I will report on the 1 year of the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition. And this is easy because many people here in this room and many of those who are following online are indeed part of this process. So for most of you, I'm not talking about something new, but for the record, we need to have this exercise. Before we go to my next slide, I would also like to share with the some of the audience that do not know. I have a particular emotion coming back to Turkey. This has been my home 10 years ago. I was stationed here, and I was working with the WHO country office here and with the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Family and Social Protection in developing the mental health services plans and workforce development in Turkey. So I come here with great appreciation for this great country, but also with great appreciation for the work that the colleagues have done in the country, in Turkey, both the colleagues in the WHO country office, the colleagues in the Ministry of Health, Bekir Bey, that goes to you and the colleagues, and also all those that come from the provincial directorates and health and social services. So I cannot go with the presentation without giving my greatest thanks to this great country. My next, yes. So what is the process? What was the process for the Mental Health Coalition? We started in, oops, sorry. Where are we? No. Yes. So the process for the Mental Health Coalition started a bit before, when the WHO Europe developed its European Programme for Work. Mental health had been already established and as one of its flagship priorities. And on that basis, the European Framework for Action on Mental Health for the years 2021 to 2025 was developed and was endorsed by a sounding approval rate by all our 53 member states in the Regional Committee in September 2021. And this is where also the member states endorsed the initiative by our regional director to establish the Mental Health Coalition that should be the operational vehicle for the Framework for Action. And you see, we went from the endorsement of the Framework for Action, we went to Brussels at the end of September last year, where we had the launch of the coalition in the presence of Her Majesty Queen Mathilde of the Belgians, the Commissioner of EU for Health and Food Safety, Stella Kyriakides, and the launch was done by was issued by our regional director, Dr. Hans Kluge. And in that picture there, the lady in orange is the Queen, but also you'll probably notice that one of the gentlemen with whom the Queen is interacting is the Deputy Minister of Turkey, Dr. Tolga Tolunay, who we had the honor of receiving here today. Then from the launch, we went to the publication of terms of reference. So last December, terms of reference were published, and a call for expression of interest was made available online. And it was accessible through WHO public website, but also we promoted it through our networks. Now you may ask why it took so long, because you say the coalition was launched in September, and the terms of reference were launched in December. And there is a very concrete reason for that, because it's an innovation in WHO. Because WHO typically works with member states, for member states. So this kind of platform is new to WHO, and we needed to go through all the details. We were somehow not very well prepared to have such an innovative platform in WHO, and it took us some time to clarify from a legal standing, from operational standing, how the coalition would stand in WHO. So then from December, we started receiving applications, and then we have a first meeting in February this year, where we met with all those that had expressed an interest, and we did a prioritizing exercise. So the working packages, and Ines talked about kind of adding one working package or one sub-working package, the working packages were designed and defined in that meeting in February. Because we didn't want to be the only ones, the WHO staff, that says, okay, those are the working packages. We wanted it to be a collective exercise, and through collective consultation with representatives from all walks of mental health communities in the region, we came to the 6 working packages that we will discuss in those 2 days. And then, as of today, you see, the Pan-European Mental Health Coalition is constituted by 189 members. Those are typically organizations such as professional associations or non-governmental organizations such as Mental Health Europe, but also representatives of member states. Each member state, each government has a nominee to the Mental Health Coalition, and some of them are here with us in this room, but also are following online. Many thanks for that. We have collaborating centers. Some of them are also here in this room, and some of them are following online, and so on. Then we have 117 supporters. Those are mainly individuals. And then we have 6 observers, and those are mainly private entities that us, for staying clear of conflict of interest, have given them the status of observer in order to harvest their commitment, but also protect the WHO processes from undue commercial interests. And then this is the roadmap. This is what we did in 2022. So the first thing in February is this meeting I referred to, is the meeting of priority setting. And then we went to Athens in March in launching the quality of care program for mental health of children and adolescents, supported by the government of Greece. And then in May, we had the first meeting of the coalition that was entirely online, and many of you were there. And then we followed in August, where we were grateful to the presence of WHO collaborating centers with whom we discussed how can we maximize the expertise and the excellence that is hosted by each collaborating center into contributing to the coalition work. Then we went in September. I don't read. I'm sorry that I am a bit... Yes, a technical expert meeting in Greece, yes, on the package for children and adolescents. Then in October, we had a series of meetings. We went to the Western Balkans. Then we went to Tirana for a Tirana Youth Forum. Then we had a meeting hosted in Poland for the mental health needs of refugees from Ukraine. And then... yes, I mentioned the Western Balkans. And then we went back to Athens for continuing the work on mental health for children and adolescents. And we are here in Turkey for the second meeting of the coalition. And we still have one more meeting to go in Copenhagen in December on big data and artificial intelligence. And we will talk about also mental health indicators and so on. Now, some of you might be saying, so, you have only been doing meetings. And what's so challenging in that? No, the answer is no. Because if you see in the bottom of that screen, you will see the technical products. And those technical products will be developed here, will be discussed with you and introduced to you here today. We have 2 technical briefings. One is on how to integrate mental health into primary health care, and the other is on what is the status of mental health policy evaluation in our region. Are our mental health policies evaluated? If so, what are the obstacles? What are the advantages, and so on? Then we have mapping exercises. We have mapped, basically, for every working package, we have mapped the status of tools, policies, services that are available in our region. This is, of course, unfinished work, but this is to say that we will present those to you in those couple of days. So while we meet, we also do technical work behind. And then you may ask, but who are you? Who are you guys? Because it is indeed a lot of meetings and a lot of technical products. And then the mental health flagship team is composed of nine colleagues. We come from all the corners of the world, from Albania and Bosnia-Herzegovina to Denmark, Italy, to Australia, to Honduras, to United States. So we really we are a United Nations team, but we are not working alone. And we work with many in the spirit of the coalition, as we want the coalition to be intersectoral, to be cross-sectional, as Ines called, to be cross-programmatic. Also in WHO, we work with other programs. We work with our WHO European Center for Primary Healthcare in Almaty, Kazakhstan, and the team is here. Melita Jakab and her team are here today to talk later today about the mental health in primary healthcare. Then we work with our WHO Europe team on health workforce development. Maggie Langins is here also to talk about how to develop roles, competencies for mental health workforce. Then we work with the WHO European team on data and digital health. As I mentioned, we'll have a meeting in December later for mental health indicators and artificial intelligence. We also work with our European office on investment for health and development that is placed in Venice, Italy. This is the office that looks into social determinants of health, and we heard from Deborah about the importance of determinants for good mental health and well-being. We also work with our team on healthy aging. Yon Jae-yon is here to talk later and discuss about the importance of protective factors in preventing mental ill health for older adults. And last but not least, we work with our WHO office on quality of care and patient safety based in Athens, Greece. So I brought this to demonstrate that like we walk the talk, like we demand from the coalition to be this body that represents everybody that has a say, that has a voice, that has an interest, that has resources, that has expertise, that has a lived experience, like we want the coalition to be that body, we also do that in our own house. So we put our ducks in a row in WHO before reaching out to you and asking your collaboration. And with this, I hope if you refer to your social media channels about this meeting, please use those hashtags so that we can attract as much attention as possible. Thank you and a very good luck in these 2 days.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for walking us through the key stages of the coalition establishment and growth. It looks like an important tool or platform for addressing the mental health issue through international collaboration. With that, we finished the list of speakers. I would like to thank all presenters for very good and informative presentations and ideas, and we are looking forward to further discuss during today and tomorrow all the issues raised and those which are still to be discussed. For the closing remarks and closing of the session, I'm passing the floor to my co-moderator. Natasha, please.
Thank you very much, Batir, and I realize I'm standing between you and lunch, or sitting between you and lunch, so it will be very short, but I cannot not share a few reflections after having again listened to such a diverse and rich and open session. So I think first we had a number of video statements when we tentatively reached out to a few ministries, always wondering, whether they would accept or not. We were really overwhelmed by the positive response that we got. Basically, everyone we are reaching out to speak about mental health, the answer is yes. Of course, in this new reality where hybrid has become a bit the new norm, we understand that for many it's easier and more convenient to record a video statement. But the fact that they take the time to prepare it, to record it and deliver it, to me is also a sign of commitment. But then also coming to the other speakers that we heard very much from the patient experience, thank you for being so honest, so candid and so forthright about what has worked and what has not worked. And also coming to our young representatives, I look forward also to to catching up with you personally, but I think it takes great courage, to be here to address an audience and not just to talk about platitudes, but to make a concrete call for action and a concrete commitment, because they are here with us and they are offering to continue walking the way, and I think we should be deeply appreciative. And then Deborah and Lydia, thank you very much for showcasing the work that is going on. I think we have come to a very interesting point where we now have the coalition together, although it keeps growing by the day, because people really, it's like a movement and people want to be part of this movement, they want to contribute. And we're very, very glad and grateful for that. The next step, of course, is to really come up with the evidence reviews, with the technical briefs, with the practical tools that then allows us all, again, to take that with us when we go into primary healthcare, when we go into hospitals, when we go into long-term care, when we go into health promoting settings, that we really have the latest recommendations that we can take with us. You've been very, very patient, you've been listening, and now we switch after lunch to the next segment of the meeting where you are the protagonists and it's time for us to take a seat, join you, and listen and take note of what you are saying. But before that, I give the floor to Elif for some practical examples, and thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you. I'll be just a few minutes for a few housekeeping points. We will have a field visit, so for the registration, it will be at this floor at the registration desk. But I would like to remind that the places are limited, and you can also find information about field visits there. And in addition, if you would like to settle any issues regarding payment or anything, you can kindly consult our colleagues at the registration desk as well. And for any kind of need or support that you need regarding the conference or anything, you can also contact me or my colleagues with a WHO Secretariat badge. And as a last point, lunch will be taken as lunch boxes, and you are welcome to stay here during lunch as well. Thank you and enjoy.